Hello, Shoyan here. Last time I finished framing the wood deck. Now I'm installing the deck boards and wrapping up the project. Today I'm picking up where I left off in the previous video, having just finished the framing. Once the frame is painted, I'll install the deck boards on top. But since the deck boards aren't ready yet, I start by prepping them. Now I'm cutting the deck boards. Each board is 4 meters long and cutting them with a miter saw can be tough. Since I only need to cut one end, it's easier to use a well-tuned circular saw and cut them to the exact length on site. The boards have already gone through a molder, but the finish wasn't quite right. The top edges came out a bit rough, so I planed them lightly with an electric planer. Then I'll add a large chamfer for a clean finish. I haven't built the stair framing on site yet. There will be 3 steps, with the third leveling out with the deck. This might not matter much, but even a single step can be considered a stair if it looks like one. And if it looks more like a step stool, then it's just a step stool. I'm using the same wood as the deck boards for the stairs since the request was to match the deck's appearance. This is actually my first time doing it this way. Now I'm showing you my miter saw. It looks pretty rough, but a saw of this size can cut through wood nearly 100 millimeters thick. I don't use it often, but it comes in handy for jobs like this, even if it looks a bit worn out. Since the painters are here now, I'm having them paint the back of the frame for the first and second steps too. It's pretty rare to have deck framing and painting happening at the same time. For this project, the painters will go back and forth between my workshop and the site twice. I'll also need to return to the workshop to work on the railings. Since it's nearby, I'll be making 2 trips as well. Now that the stair framing is done, I set it aside at the site. Back at the workshop, I start making the railing. The timber is pretty hefty. The weight gives it a solid feel, but I'm a little worried about how heavy it'll be once it's fully assembled. I'm building the railing a set with vertical balusters and a top and bottom rail. The painters can paint all sides of it after it's installed. For now, they're just covering the areas that won't be accessible later. The vertical balusters and the horizontal rails have a 1 centimeter difference in width, so I place 5 mm thick shims underneath the balusters and secure them. That way, one side stays flush, making assembly easier. Now, I'm back at the site, transporting the timber. I haven't framed the first step yet, so I start with that. Now I install the deck boards. Spacing them evenly across all 11 boards seems simple, but I hadn't decided on the exact gap. Luckily, I had kept some 1 centimeter offcuts from the baseboard, and they worked perfectly as spacers. I want the front board to stick out slightly, and the final spacing turned out just right. I notched the first and second boards from the front to fit around the posts. Notching the posts would look cleaner, but it would let water seep in and cause damage over time. It's better to notch the deck boards instead, since they're much easier to replace if needed. There's a beam running parallel underneath the first and second boards, so water will tend to collect there. I drilled some holes at those points right between the deck boards to help with drainage. Now, I secure the deck boards. This time, I'm using stainless steel screws with round heads instead of the round head nails I normally use. I expected the screw heads to be smaller, but they're actually quite noticeable. Whether it's nails or screws, the heads will always stand out, so they need to be considered as part of the design. I fasten all the deck boards using the 1 centimeter spacers again to keep the gaps even. This works perfectly fine and makes the process much easier. Visible screws and nails should be perfectly aligned. Even a 3 mm difference in alignment would be noticeable. So, I snap a chalk line to mark the screws' positions before securing them. These screws are fully threaded, which made fastening them a bit tricky. When I was pre-tightening them, the deck board lifted up slightly. So, I had to loosen the screws and then secure them again properly. That's one downside of using fully threaded screws. The ends of the short deck boards facing the wall are already painted. I secure them with a gap of about 7 millimeters from the wall. Now, I cut the deck boards on the side of the house. It's nearly impossible to pre-cut them and have the front ends aligned perfectly on site. So, I use a straight edge as a guide and trim them afterward. This way, the ends line up perfectly. I tried using sandpaper to finish the cut edges, but it didn't turn out quite right. A hand plane was much faster and gave a cleaner finish. That said, sandpaper is still easier and quicker for smoothing the 1 centimeter gap on the end grain. Now, I'm working on the stairs leading to the front door. The frame is already built, so I use 1 centimeter spacers and screw down the deck boards for the 2 steps. Next, I install the railing, which is only placed at the front of the house. When I built the frame, I installed posts at the corners and in the center. Now, I'll fit the railing between them. I don't notch or drill into the side of the posts. I just slide the railing in from the side, adjust the height, and secure it. Again, installing the railing is just a matter of fitting it between the posts. No notches needed. The screws are the only thing holding the railings in place. Since I can't use too many screws, I countersink them and screw them in at an angle for extra strength. Finally, I installed the cap rail on top. I haven't processed this piece yet, so I marked the cut line based on where it'll sit. Like the railing, I don't notch the post for the cap rail. I just fit it in with a butt joint and screw it in from the back. If you look closely, you can see the screws, but hopefully it won't be an issue. Now, the deck has an American style look. Just adding the railing at the front really gives it that distinct American feel. That impression is stuck in my head. It's my first time building something like this, but it looks great. It turned out even better than I expected. I'm really happy with it. When fastening the deckboard screws, the Phillips head sometimes gets slightly deformed, leaving small burrs. I make sure to remove them because they could cut someone's foot. I carefully sand them down to keep everything safe. I finished building the wood deck. Since it leads to the front door, people will mostly step onto it with their shoes on. Now, this project is finally finished. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.